In Idaho, we go ho, ho, ho. That's a part of a very big song that we used to sing while teaching in elementary school. And there's one for a bunch of different states. In Kentucky, they go yuck, yuck, yuck. In Tennessee, they go he, he, he. But in Idaho, they go ho, ho, ho. And that's what we're going to talk about today, Idaho. We are now into the American Northwest. And our story takes place in this town way up north in Sandpoint, Idaho, often a part of Idaho that people aren't talking as much about because it's so much about Boise and all the mountains around there. But in Sandpoint, I actually have a personal connection, so I was interested in learning more about Sandpoint because I thought it was a beautiful city. I thought it was very cultured, and I got an espresso there, my first on that trip. I was riding cross country on my bicycle, and so I stopped in Sandpoint and saw a play and met some actors, and oh, it was wonderful. Well, I was very surprised to hear when I did my research that Sandpoint, which was originally Sandy Point, which was just a nickname of the town Pend Oreille is what it was originally called, well, it was a rough and tumble place. It was a pretty hard place to be. I mean, imagine the hardest picture of the Wild West, and that was Sandpoint. Mud and gunslingers and whiskey and taverns and the whole 9 yards. Well, that was that place. So I was interested, and I found a great story. So our story, A Brave Day Indeed, features Delia Horton and Teddy Roosevelt. Two very different characters, two people that are holding two sides of the American Northwest and the Wild West, which is kind of the heart of this story and its contribution to the American story. So A Brave Day Indeed is about the time when Teddy Roosevelt really did come to Sandpoint and really did have a conversation with someone and was on his way to a big hunting trip up in Canada. But then his friends that he came with from New York, they got places to stay for that night, and everything was booked, and old poor Teddy didn't have a place to stay. So Delia Horton, the owner of the tavern, got him a place to stay across the street in a little shack, and he spent the night there, but the owner of the shack came in the middle of the night, didn't want to bother Delia with getting the key, so he snuck in the window and hopped into bed with Teddy Roosevelt. It's all history. And so they worked it out, however they worked it out, and I thought that was an interesting story. So what it came down to was this: what is this conversation with Teddy and Delia? Because Sandpoint, in a very short period of time, totally transformed. And so this story is all about what leads up to that transformation, which is this idea of making yourself. The Brave Day Indeed, where the title comes from, is all about Teddy when he's young, because we don't often hear about his youth when he was home, sick, most of the time with asthma and a number of other things. Never went to go play sports, never even had many friends, couldn't do much. His parents didn't think he would live past, his teenage years. And so his father, at some point, a very wealthy family, had great doctors, sat him down and said, Teedy, he didn't like that nickname. It was actually Teedy rather than Teddy. You have the mind, because he was bookish and read everything, but you don't have the body. You need to go make yourself. And so Teddy Roosevelt, the brave day indeed, was going to this summer camp and being teased and bullied for being skinny and weak, but he stuck with it. And he made himself over that summer, changed his life from that point forward, got over asthma, over all the illnesses, and then eventually became president. So this story takes place before he became president, but at this point in his life where he is going out into the world and having these adventures and studying the American West. And Delia, meanwhile, is at a place where she's kind of stuck. Her town is not where she wants to raise her kids. She wants a school. She wants a place, a hospital. She wants a real town. What do I do? The railroad people are holding her back. And so they have a conversation. And that part's historical fiction, but I can imagine Teddy Roosevelt saying, you know, there's a time to make yourself, and Delia knowing that she's the one that's going to make this town. And then she does. And so the story, that conversation happens, and then the story ends many years later after Teddy Roosevelt has been already president twice and is running for a third time in the Progressive Party. And he comes back to a very different Sandpoint. And the people there tell him all these different reasons why Sandpoint transformed with mining and lumber and all of these different things. But he knows that it had to do with one woman stepping forward and making her town. So there's a lot to learn from that story and from Idaho. And so enjoy. Until next time, bye-bye.